Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Just Finished. I am excited to be joined today by Cassie from her channel Cass Reacts to talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer today. Cassie, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thank you so much for asking me to be here to talk about Buffy. How could I say no? I'll talk to anyone and everyone about Buffy. I'm so annoying about it.
That's no problem at all. I really adore the show. It's one of my favorite series of all time. And
Cool.
when you're watching it, you were halfway through it when the Normies were finishing it, and another couple channels just finishing out. And it's one of those shows that for a reaction series it plays such a pivotal role, like so many others, in terms of how you watch it, when you watch it. Particularly for you, it's a show that's lasted you 2.5 years, and it's been a huge touchstone for you with the channel. I know when you have a series like that to go back to every week for something like this, it does cement itself as like something you sort of really remember as for a certain point in your life, because it's such a transformational point just in terms of what happens to you off camera and on camera. You've had a lot of accomplishments since then, so I think this is something that will really sort of be able to stick with you for a while.
Oh yeah. It's cool. I'm happy that I watched it this way because this was a show that I would have watched on my own or on camera. It was on my list. And I'm actually really happy I got to watch it on camera. And one of the main reasons for that is just the fact that I didn't binge it all in like a month or two, like I know I would have if I was on my own.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have the show be like an era of my life, in not the same way that it is for other people who watched it when it was first coming out, because obviously that spanned years and years and years longer than me watching it. But even just being able to stretch it 2.5 years is like really nice to like breathe with it and live with it for a while.
Yeah. Especially, it forces you to sort of examine everything about it, especially even the episodes that, don't stick out as like the, sort of pivotal big ones. But even the smaller ones, it lets you sort of breathe with it. And, for you getting started with the series itself, you mentioned when you started in season 1 that you had at one point went through sort of a phase of watching a lot of like, CW/WB teen dramas.
Yes.
And I guess I sort of give you a predisposition towards it. I guess, what was your background with that genre of TV, and how did that prepare you for jumping into something like Buffy?
Yeah, so I was such a teen drama girly when I was in high school, college. I watched like One Tree Hill and Gossip Girl and Vampire Diaries and so many staple teen drama shows. And I don't know how and I don't know why, but I feel like Buffy is a little bit of a hidden gem. Maybe that's just how it came across to me, because I don't know why it didn't come up very much for me, like when I was looking for shows to watch when I was younger. It should have. It's like a crime that it didn't. But looking back on, I'm like, I know I love a teen drama, and that's all I expected going into Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's so much more than that. And it's like, I guess supernatural teen drama, my only reference was probably Vampire Diaries. Very much, no hate to Vampire Diaries, very much better. And I guess I like knew it was going to be fun, but I didn't expect it to be so good. Like, it's genuinely my favorite show of all time. So I'm happy. It's so silly that like I was like, I like Vampire Diaries, I'll give Buffy a shot, and then it just, my God, blew my expectations away.
Yeah. In terms of like, the cultural timeline, I guess, Buffy predated, the Twilight, era of things. And then I think the Twilight era things very much informed the Vampire Diaries in terms of
Oh yeah.
where that developed. So it's funny to see this sort of evolution or de-evolution of that coming from that going into Buffy.
Yeah.
What did you know about the show itself getting into it? I mean, in terms of like the, specifics of the plot, stuff like that, but also just the legacy of it.
I think I knew that it was a cult following type of show, where even though it's not one that came up as something recommended to watch next whenever I was watching all the shows I watched when I was younger, I knew that there were people who this show was like they would ride or die for it. And that's the kind of show that I'm always interested in. I love a cult following, especially with like movies, but with TV as well. And so I knew that. And then plot wise and everything, I knew nothing. I knew that Sarah Michelle Gellar was Buffy. And that was it. That was the extent of my knowledge, which I loved because it just made everything so much more exciting.
Yeah. I think that's kind of about what I knew as well when I first started it. I watched it from a length of about 2010 to about 2013. Just like, again,
nice.
I took a break in the middle some point, but I did finish it. And then like I said earlier, it's just one of those shows, where it just hits you at the right time in your life when you watch it. It's obviously about, coming of age. It's about, like parallels for, things in your life that you had to overcome. And it's one of the things, like, even though I was a little older than the target demographic of when it aired, I still found a lot of, value in it for myself, just because of, how well it was put together. And I know, once, getting into the series itself, I think you mentioned that you were hoping that Buffy would kick off in a way where we just jump into it. She's the Slayer, we know what it is, and then you are able to learn about the world around it as things sort of just happen. And that's kind of what they do. And I think that's sort of like the brilliance of the show. We did have the movie before that, which I know you watched much later.
Yes.
But the show itself was the vision of, those involved. And I think that they did a great job just establishing who Buffy was and the supporting characters. Really quick, I want to ask, did you ever watch the unaired pilot?
I have not yet, but I've been told that it is a necessary watch, so I absolutely will.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure after you're finished with everything.
Yeah. I forget Sarah is in that. I know there's some casting differences, but Sarah Michelle Gellar is in it.
Willow is it's a different actor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's very hard. But getting in season 1 itself, do you recall, I guess, when you first started, what you would say the show did right for you? Elements that you sort of like picked up right away that you're like, okay, this is sort of like piquing my interest, like this and that.
Okay, so it was so interesting going into the show because my comment section immediately was saying, just stick with it. Like, just get through season 1. It gets better. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? I loved it from the first episode.
Right.
I loved it so much. I thought that they established characters really well immediately, where they're kind of using archetypes, but you're already seeing that they're not going to stay in that archetype when they introduce a character for you. They were already so fleshed out from the beginning. I remember the opening scene where we see Darla and we don't realize that she is a vampire, and that switch in the opening scene where she attacks her date. And that's probably the moment I knew, like, oh, this is going to be good, because it's already like reverting expectations in its opening scene. The writing is something that I immediately loved. I think I forget now this is where it's going to be hard because I don't know every single episode title, but the one, it might have actually been called The Witch or something. It was the first Amy episode in the first season.
Right.
Where Amy was having issues, like her mom was possessing her and reliving her glory days to be a cheerleader again. And I remember that episode specifically is where I was like really impressed and excited about the writing of the show, which is just something that I always notice and appreciate in what makes or breaks a show for me. But those first 2 episodes, the way they established characters, again, right off the bat, I was like, this is going to be great.
Yeah. I think the comment section you mentioned, that's like almost a defense mechanism people have with the show.
Yeah, I know.
Please, let's give it a chance. I think the first major one is the praying mantis teacher one. I think that's the big litmus test for people.
That was a rough one.
That's one.
Yeah, that was
like,
interesting.
Okay, I'll see if I can stick to this. But you're very right, and like I think one of the things I really love about your reaction specifically is that you do latch onto characters very strongly, and you latch onto like characterization, character arcs, stuff like that, and that this show has that in spades. With the way everyone develops over the series. And you're right, when you get started with it and you see sort of like the foundation of where everyone's being built to, even just in that first season, which I forgot was 12 episodes, that's a great way to sort of kick off ways that you can grow. And then I think getting through the end of the final season with Buffy dying, I know that the comment section had to remind you, or like sort of prod you a little bit, that like, hey, just so you know, she died. That's like just so you know, that's a thing. That's a plot point.
Yeah.
So to keep in mind. But getting into season 2, I guess, one of the things I really loved early on was the development of Cordelia specifically.
Okay, yeah.
That's obviously someone that, you know, goes from like enemy to friend to ally and so on. And she goes off to her own adventures as an angel. Yeah, I guess what were your thoughts on Cordelia early on? Did you have like an inkling that she could become, you know, like an ally at some point? Was there any point where you thought like, okay, this is someone that I would like to see more of?
Yeah, I don't think I was ever too hard on Cordelia. I do still see people being like, I can't stand her. Well, we see it from, that's what's great about this show is you see it with a bunch of different characters. People are like, I love this character, I hate this character, about every character, unless it's Buffy. Everyone loves Buffy, okay? But
Right.
but yeah, with Cordelia, I remember being just her cracking me up in this first season specifically. Like her humor was so funny to me. I think in the first season, and even into the second a bit, they were trying to use Xander as the forefront of comedic relief as far as when it came to characters. And sure, I found him funny at times, but really it was Cordelia that like stole the show for me.
Yeah.
The moment she said, what is your childhood trauma? It was like the moment where I was like, you are awful, but I love you. You're so funny. Like they wrote her funny enough to stay entertaining even when she was like very shallow at the start. Yeah. And I was not surprised at all to see where they took her character. I was like, I'm gonna just have fun with her. If this is, it's not the type of show where I'm like, she's gonna stay this one-dimensional forever. So I'm just gonna enjoy her in this stage, and I'm sure I'll enjoy her when she grows from here. And she did, and it was great.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where when she does start coming around, and then they start forming this sort of like, you know, the early sort of version of, you know, the Scoobies, you know, as we know it, like the core gang. We start getting, you know, Oz and Angel, stuff like that. And rewatching with you, I forgot how pivotal season 2 was, just in terms of again, who joins the show, the arc that we get Spike, we get, you know, Angelus returned, we get Oz again, so there's a bunch that goes on, and the core thrust of that season is definitely Buffy's relationship with Angel, which again, I think was a precursor to a lot of like, you know, shipping culture that we got later with like, you know, Vampire Social specifically, and then other shows in general. I guess, do you recall early on, I guess throughout the series too, any, you know, ships that, you know, sort of drove or like maybe sparked that teen drama, you know, like interest you had?
I knew right away. Well, when we meet Angel, maybe it was the first couple episodes. I can't remember if he was in the very first or when he first showed up, but he had a very mysterious entrance to the show. And I was like, you look at that guy and you're like, okay, you're going to be a love interest. I know you. I'm looking at you. I see how you're acting. You're going to be a love interest. And, yeah, I didn't expect, talking about ships in general with this show, I didn't realize how, you know, what a trailblazing show this was when I first started watching. And so when I first started watching, I was like, oh, of course, they're going to have this guy, but then there's another guy, and then you're shipping. And it's something I've seen before, but it's something that, like you said, really was a catalyst for how we view ship culture today, was with Buffy. So when Angel first showed up, I was like not thinking in those terms of like, okay, am I going to ship her with him? And actually, I didn't. I'm not a big Buffy Angel girl. Well, I don't know. In the final season, I was surprised by myself when there's a bit of a reunion there, and I was so emotional, and I was like, oh my God, no, there's something special with this relationship. And everyone who ships them is like so valid for that. But I remember in season 2, it feeling so doomed that I was like, I can't root for this. I did not let myself root for it. And so yeah, that was my stance there. And some people were frustrated with me, I think, but I don't know, that's a personal thing where it's like, if I don't see it working, I just can't be excited.
Yeah, it's hard to invest when we see it. Yeah. And like I said, for season 2, you do see the writing on the wall. I think about, you know, halfway through, once, you know, he he turns in back into Angelus, and then in any sort of like TV thing where like, a main character sort of betrays the group or something like that, there's always that like, like level, that meter that builds up of like how far can they go until like they sort of have to like they have to pay for like what they've done. And I think that came when he killed Jenny Calendar, and that's such a shocking moment. And before things like Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead, like this was like the show, like or like this type of writing was the show that like had the shock value in it. for the fandom.
Oh, I was shocked. That was crazy. That was a big moment for me too, as far as understanding what kind of show I was getting into here, which made me very excited. Like, of course I was sad, but also I was so excited when that happened, because I was like, oh, we're going there, and I'm sure we're going to keep going there. And we did. And it was great.
Yeah. They when it mattered, they would not pull punches on killing off a main character. And it definitely didn't do it too often, but they definitely did do it when it mattered. And not even kill them off, but like also when people would leave, and like the way they would sort of develop. And season 2, getting into the latter half of it, with Spike and Angel and Drusilla. Spike and Drusilla are such a funny combo to bring into the show, and they really spice things up because they sort of like close the gap of like Buffy, and like in terms of like just the age, but like before it was her and the Master, then it's Spike and Drusilla as her adversaries. And obviously I think that's just informed them a lot about keeping James Marsden around, about being a series regular for the future of the series. I guess, what were your early thoughts on Spike and Drusilla in season 2, and then getting into season 3 as well, when they leave and then eventually come back in their own right?
Yeah. So I remember Spike's entrance to the show so vividly, which is very interesting to me, because it's like, I didn't know Spike was a character. I'd never heard the name. Like, I didn't know this was a big deal, his entrance to the show. But then, even though I didn't know, I could still feel like, oh shoot, who is this? This feels like a big deal. Like, I love the way they brought him in. Yeah. I thought he was really fun right off the bat. How can you not love this character? Not in terms of, I love him, I want him to be with Buffy, or he's such a good guy, like, not in those terms, but just in like an entertainment standpoint, he's great. And I remember Drusilla at first, I'm sure I was like, what's happened to you, girl? Like, what's going on with you? But I think pretty quickly I gathered, like, oh no, there's some wisdom here, and she's been through something, and I want to really pay attention to what she's saying. So I had a lot of fun with the dialogue with her character, and like latching onto every little thing. That's a big thing I'm excited to pay more attention to on a rewatch, is everything she's said, because I feel like a lot of it was very prophetic. But yeah, no, I thought they were so fun immediately. Their dynamic with each other was so interesting, and the whole tone of the show shifted with them entering for the better, I think.
Yeah, I agree. My partner, she'll attest. Her first name is Sarah. Her middle name is Drew. She has gone by Drew most of her life because of Drusilla.
So valid.
Yeah, it's something that she really loved growing up, and so that's how I met her. That's how I knew her first, was Drew. I didn't learn her name was Sarah until like a year later after I met her.
That's awesome.
But we meet Kendra in season 2, and that sort of bucks the system, because I think, again, with the world building of the show itself, we learn early on that the concept of the Slayer and the lore, a little bit of the lore behind it, that there's only one, and that makes it very special in a way. It's funny, I watched K-pop Demon Hunters for the first time recently, and that's how I sort of felt watching that, is the idea that they're the only hunters in that world. It reminded me of Buffy, how she's the only Slayer in the world. There's only one, like, sort of chosen one to take up that mantle. But we do they play around with it, which I think is really great, introducing Kendra as the new Slayer, because Buffy died for very briefly, and then through that we get Faith as well. And Faith, I think, becomes one of my favorite characters over the show. Again, just because of that arc that she has of going from like sort of like a very almost feral child, where they meet her, into like a really strong ally and like a partial leader by the end of the series. So I guess, what were your thoughts on? I guess, remember your thoughts on the early elements of that Slayer dynamic, and then meeting Kendra and Faith, and like seeing how that can develop?
I was so excited when Kendra entered, and the show explains to you like why she's here and what happened there. And I was like, well, first of all, it totally makes sense. It's my favorite. It's a little plot twist. It feels like one at least, even though it absolutely makes sense because like there's one Slayer. When the Slayer dies, another one takes over. Like I think you have that info at that point, but I still didn't think, oh, well, Buffy technically died, so that means there must be another Slayer out there. Like, did not cross my mind for a second. So her entrance is so exciting because it's just cool. It's cool to see two Slayers in a room for the first time,
Right.
and also it's just like it changes everything. I just love it so much because the chosen one trope is an age-old tale. And what they did here with that trope and the isolation that we see it brings to whoever the chosen one is in every tale over and over, they really play with the idea of that isolation being overcome, and in a very like subtle kind of slow burn type of way that I appreciated. So when we first met Kendra, I was like, this is so cool that we like have someone to relate to. And that like those, I think it was a part 1, part 2 with Kendra at first, where they kind of were looking at each other like, who do you think you are? I'm the Slayer.
Yeah.
But then by the end of that second part with Kendra, they were helping each other and embracing each other as Slayers together, which is just really cool in the context of where the whole show is going. And then Faith, great character, one of my favorite characters as well, just from a strictly character writing standpoint. I think she's so interesting, and I am very proud of myself for kind of understanding her pretty quickly. So I could enjoy her even more and enjoy the baby steps she took forward even more and steps backwards. And I want to say, like, when talking about Faith, it reminds me in a way about Cordelia as well, where even though there's character growth, the characters never lose their personality and just become someone completely different and righteous. They're still very much them, but that you can still see so much growth there. So that's something I really appreciated with Faith, is like the 3 steps forward, 5 steps back journey that I'm sure was very frustrating for a lot of people at times. And there's points with Faith's character where in my comment section, it's like, this is what did it for me. I can't root for her. I hate her. Right. And I'm like, no, no, don't hate her. Like it's so much more complicated than that. And I appreciate the guts of the writers in that aspect of the show for sure.
Yeah. Like you said, the Slayer, rule that they have at the beginning of the show, is akin to like a superhero trope in the idea of like it's very Spider-Man in the idea like Buffy just wants to have a normal life, but she has this calling. With great power comes great responsibility to uphold that call, and I think that informs her character a lot throughout the series, particularly in season 2 and 3. Season 2. Having to, be responsible for killing Angel. Season 3, I think having to be responsible for dealing with Faith, when she loses her way. And I really do love how, even though each character is like so well-rounded in their own right as a person, it all still really informs who Buffy is as like the main, protagonist of the series, and how she has to deal with these things. And like she does have to, sometimes she falters too, but she does come back in a way where like she becomes stronger. She has to learn from it, and she has to sometimes put her aside what she wants for the greater good. And in season 3, it's funny. That's when I think the earliest idea I can remember of them playing with format, because the show eventually starts, playing with format with things like What's My Time with Feeling and a couple of other episodes. But the first one I can remember was the Zeppo, which is in season 3, the Xander solo episode. That's the one where like they're playing with the idea like, oh, what does it look like to someone who's like one of the side characters of like this world-ending event going on, but Xander's just dealing with a silly zombie story. I really love that episode just because of like the way it plays with structure and like stakes and stuff like that. I guess for that episode specifically, and then I guess the meta sort of ability of the show to play with itself. What were your thoughts on, I guess, that episode, and then it's what the implications for the future?
I loved that episode. I loved it so much. I love a concept episode where we step outside of like the normal formula and
Mhm.
just do something completely different. But the difference is like I've seen concept episodes done in on other shows, of course. But when it comes to Buffy, the way they do them is still so important to the plot and the characters.
Mhm.
Whereas I feel like a lot of other shows, they just do something for fun because they want to do it for fun.
Right.
It doesn't really, you could do with or without the episode in the context of the show, but those episodes are so important here on
Yeah.
Buffy. And that episode I know made me appreciate Xander a lot, the way that it ended with him like not feeling the need to share his successes with the rest of the group and just keeping that day to himself, everything that he did to himself. And I was like, that's really telling of your character. And I carried that with his character for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, it definitely made me really excited for future concept episodes, which I always love, like even down to the Jonathan episode.
Yes.
It's like maybe not my favorite in terms of character work or anything, but it's still always really, really fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a fun concept, especially again when they play with the meta structure of it, like having him in the intro, like spliced in with like
Yes.
the shot,
That's
the
so
hero shots
fun.
of
That's
him.
so
Yeah,
good.
yeah, that's always a fun one to watch for reactions because it throws everyone for such a strong loop. But then it does seed
Yeah.
out like the elements later, like you said, that they can reuse in the show. Um, and yeah, season 3 again is such a pivotal series point for the show because that's the last year of high school. Season 4 is when they go into college,
Mm.
and I think for a lot of people, especially people that I know personally, when they look back at the series, they have like a sort of stronger nostalgia for the high school era of the show. I think that's just
Okay.
because it fits like a sort of more fun vibe and like a certain
Yeah.
dynamic of like being a kid, that that you can like reach back to when you were a kid and you were in high school. You had all these problems, and
Yeah.
growing up and going to college like feels less fun, just
Yeah.
conceptually. Um, I guess if we split the show into those two halves, do you have a preference of them being in high school versus them being adults and going to college and so on?
I kind of can understand like the nostalgia factor does feel heightened when it comes to those high school seasons. Maybe it's also just because we're still very much in the 90s and aren't we like into the 21st century when we're leaving high school? It kind of gets split up that way.
Yeah,
Um, and so I don't know, those earlier seasons, even down to like the tech that was being used and like the cameras and everything, like that's what makes it feel nostalgic to me.
right.
And maybe, also just the fact that they're in high school has something to do with it. But I don't have a preference at all. Like another thing I love about this show is like everybody's favorite seasons are so different. Everyone's rankings of the seasons are so different for the most part.
Yeah,
And also I love when like it kind of sucks when a show you're like the first 3 seasons are really good, but then it kind of falls off. Like Buffy does not do that. It's
hmm,
like got its ups and downs through the whole show, and that's what's really exciting. Is like so my personal favorite season is season 6, but then 3 is also very much up there. So it's like I appreciate both sides of it, where they're
yeah.
still in high school versus not. It just depends on what is going on.
Yeah, yeah. It's very funny. Season 6 being your favorite because that's the season with the trio. And so again, on paper,
Yeah,
you would think like why, but
yeah.
so much happens in that season that I can totally understand why that would be
Mm-hmm.
your favorite because of what happens with the characters.
Mm-hmm.
That's the beauty of the show. And then getting into season 4, again, they're in college. Um, a lot changes, for them as well, in terms of the gang itself. Oz leaves, Riley comes in, and there's big shifts. There's big shifts for what they do,
Yeah.
and I think also in terms of antagonists and big bads for the season. That's when we have Adam, and Adam is also like I think not everyone's like favorite of terms of when they look back on
No.
the show. Um, and yeah, so I guess as a broad spectrum, like analysis, like do you what are your thoughts on season 4? Again, balancing that, maybe a little bit underwhelming big bad with like the sort of pivotal, character arcs that we get in that season.
Yeah. Well, I will say season 4 is probably my least favorite season overall. Great episodes, of course. I will say I did like a episode ranking where I ranked every single episode. It was the hardest thing ever.
Right.
And there was only one episode in the entire show that I genuinely didn't like and would not want to rewatch, and that is Bad Eggs. I just can't. I don't know why. I just can't with that episode.
Right.
But outside of that, I enjoy and am excited to rewatch every single 143 other episodes of this show. So even though season 4 is my least favorite, I still like it. And it was a little bit of a, it is a big shift not having the high school anymore, not having the library to connect with each other anymore. And we're in college now, and but Xander isn't, and Giles in that season was in the weird space as well. I don't know. It was like all very chaotic. Like, what are we going to do with our characters here? And in the moment, I will say it felt like I was like, do the writers know what they want to do with these characters? But in hindsight, I'm like, oh, they do. And it's purposeful to be like, they don't really know what they're doing. And it's very just relatable and accurate to what it's like going out on your own for the first time. Yeah, Adam wasn't my favorite. I really liked Walsh. I'm like really sad that she ended up getting cut off at the point that she did in that season. I would have loved to see her be there for the whole season. And introducing Riley, he was fine. He was never my favorite character. There are a lot of moments where I really, really appreciate him, and I think he's kind of overlooked sometimes. But there was still something in me where, like, when he kept on being in the show, I was like, I did not expect you to still be here, and you're still here. And I think it's because, like, he is just such a normal guy. Like, he just never felt like he was in the Scooby Gang. He felt like Buffy's boyfriend. And I feel like I need more from you. Not to say there's so many things he went through that I found super interesting, like that whole character arc of him, like, putting so much faith into the, what did they call it? Oh my gosh.
Not
place.
Not the organization or something.
I was about to say institution, but that's definitely not what it's called. No, I don't know. But like being involved in that with Walsh and everyone else, and then having to turn his back on it. And it's like kind of an allegory of him kind of having to switch up his entire belief system. I thought was really, really interesting, and I really enjoyed that part of his character. But outside of that, I was like, okay, now what are we going to do with your character? Because you know that him and Buffy are just not endgame. Like, I don't know if that's obvious to everyone else, but it was very obvious to me that this is not going to be someone she spends the rest of her life with. And you know me, when it comes to doomed relationships and things that are not going to work out, I'm like, all right. What are we doing here? So that's maybe something I struggled with a bit in that season, is the addition of his character and trying to figure out how he's going to fit in, and knowing he wasn't going to stay. But that season overall, I don't know. It's just like the military storyline in the background, that just isn't my vibe in general. So it being put into such like a fun supernatural show was very jarring, and it took a second to get used to, and it was cool. I liked the mystery of it in the beginning, but then when we like discovered what was going on and it was all out in the open without the mystery, I was like, okay, this is fine.
It's one of those developments that you think could go somewhere, but like it sort of plateaus pretty early on because it doesn't really have like much to grow, I guess, in terms of again with the characters and what it's informing them about. But you're very right that Riley does feel like, in terms of a friend group, that person who's like, he's not really like our friend, he's our friend's boyfriend that he hangs around and we don't really know him that well. But it's funny that he does get sort of a happy ending for himself, with his wife, we see later. I think it sort of cements the idea that this just wasn't like the fit for him. Like he just was not the life that he was, meant to sort of have with them, and like everything that they went through. And it's funny because at that same time, we're also very, very, very slowly seeding out the seeds for Buffy and Spike in that season, because Spike gets the chip in his head. He starts to become more of an ally. And that obviously becomes a huge part of the show all the way to the very end of the series. Do you recall any inkling, your first inkling that might be a thing? And then how did that sort of develop for you as it started to go on?
Oh, like Buffy and Spike being potentially together in some way. I can't remember. You know what? I can't pin it down to a specific moment where I was like, oh, wait. And maybe there is. Maybe if I go back and watch my reactions, there is a moment like that. But in hindsight, I can't remember, because I think it was so like such a slow burn, which I appreciated. And then suddenly we're just in the middle of it and you look back and you're like, how did this happen? But we're here now. Right. Yeah, I remember, as far as the chip, being like really excited that they did that, because I could feel we were getting to a point with Spike's character where it was like, I want him to have a reason to stick around and be involved, but we need something to happen to make that happen. And so the chip was like a great thing, like a great tool to keep him close to the Scooby Gang and give Buffy a reason not to just kill him already, you know? So yeah, I was really excited about that, and just him staying involved with the Scooby Gang. For some reason, I have no idea what episode this is, but I remember really being excited with the episode. It was a really goofy one where something might have gone wrong with a Willow spell, and Buffy and Spike were like engaged, and they're like, we're gonna get married. Right. And it was so ridiculous. But I remember in that episode being like, you guys are kind of cute though. Like, wait, this isn't a joke to me. It's a joke to the show, but wait. So yeah, just little episodes like that in the beginning. I mean, they have great chemistry, those actors. So it's like you can just feel it between them. Oh, and you know what other moment was? When Faith was in Buffy's body. Right. And she flirts with Spike, and you see that Spike is kind of interested. He's like, wait a minute, and looks at her different, and is like, wait, and you're like, wait, would you be interested in Buffy? I think that might have been a moment that was like really exciting to me too. So yeah, lots of little moments that come to mind, I guess.
Yeah. That episode with Faith is again so instrumental, because it's like it's almost like Buffy's id, like sort of just coming out, and like in a way where she can't, deny elements of herself, because again, Faith is sort of a reflection of Buffy in the way that I think maybe Buffy would like to be, carefree sometimes, and so body swapping like that is like a really good way to sort of turn things on its head, especially at that point in the season.
Yeah, great episodes.
Yeah, I love that episode so much. I also just love her practicing in the mirror, saying like, you can't do that, that's wrong.
That's wrong. Yeah. It's so funny.
And also shout out to obviously I think one of people's favorite episode, Hush, where I got my shirt from. Buffy Will Patrol.
Oh yes. Amazing.
But we also meet Tara in that season. And obviously that's a huge shift for Willow, and I think that's cementing a huge part of what makes the show special to people, having that such early queer representation for a series at that point in time. And I think people look back on the show very fondly because of just their involvement with it, and what it meant to them growing up watching it when they were kids, when it was airing. I guess what were your thoughts on Tara, I guess early on, again when she is a little bit more of an enigma for Willow, and then as we get into know her a little bit more with her and her family and her background in season 4 and 5.
Yeah. Before I say that, I just have to say it finally came to me. It's the initiative. The initiative.
Thank you.
But okay, Tara. Okay, so in the beginning, obviously, they kind of set up Tara to be someone that you compare with Oz, because we see like Oz's final exit from the show. In the same episode that we see Tara and Willow finally, blow out the candle and have time together in the darkness. Of course, we're not going to see that because it's the 90s and it's ridiculous, and it would be just so scandalous. But yeah, I remember with Oz, I was like really upset to see him leave. I loved his character, and I was just surprised. I was honestly surprised at how long he stayed, because Seth Green is the name of that actor.
Yeah.
He's a bigger actor, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize he had such a long stint on this show. But yeah, I was really sad to see him go, but I was really excited to see that Tara and Willow relationship blossom. And I think at first when we were introduced to Tara, I was like, no way this girl is this nice and this perfect. And she just is. And it's kind of fun to have a character like that. I don't know if it's super realistic, but I don't need it to be. You know what? I think it is. Let me be not such a pessimistic. I think it is. She's just so perfect. And I want to believe that there are so many Taras in this world. I think it was the episode Family that really cemented her as just one of my favorites, when her family came in and you realize how much of an outsider Tara feels like. And that's like actually a really interesting thing as well, viewing Tara kind of compared to Riley, where Riley never felt like he was part of the Scooby Gang. And it's like, he didn't want to be. He didn't really care. Like, he was nice. He was civil. He was, but he was not connected to them in that way. And Tara wanted to be. And of course, we're going to welcome her with open arms because she's Tara. But I remember being so sad in that episode, because I was like, I didn't even realize that you felt like you weren't being accepted by everyone, and it made me feel awful. And then seeing Buffy be like, your family, a chosen family trope is like, it gets me every time.
Right.
So yeah, that episode was like a big one for me in terms of like my connection with Tara and just loving her so dearly.
Yeah, and also surprised Amy Adams in that episode.
Yeah, that was fun. It's like, wait, am I seeing this right? Yeah, that's so fun when there's a random cameo you're not expecting.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I completely agree. It's funny. Willow, I think did luck out with Oz and Tara in terms of like Oz does feel like almost like a manic pixie dream boyfriend at first, because he is so perfect for her, and then Tara likewise. But Tara does, I think, really, really well to inform again Willow's transformation as like a person. Just character-wise, but also just in terms of her characterization of what she contributes to the show as like a witch, and like developing that power within her, how that eventually does evolve with her power later on. And it's interesting. You mentioned them blowing up the lights and going dark and stuff like that. We actually don't see them kiss on screen until one of the biggest episodes of the series, which is The Body. That's the first time we ever see them kiss on screen. When Tara's trying to console her. I think that's such like a really important choice for why that's the first time we see it. Again, because like that episode itself, I want to talk about it a little bit because obviously it's such a big moment in the series, and it's I think arguably one of the best television episodes on television in television history, just in terms of like how it impacts the show, but also the way it's done and the way it can stand the test of time for a lot of people. Going into it, I know it hits you like a freight train, because the episode prior to that is when they fix the monster of the week. They come back and Buffy walks in and Joyce is just on the couch, and that's how the episode ends. So like I think did you watch that back to back in terms of like how close did you watch that end of that episode and then getting into The Body itself, and do you recall what the tension was like wondering about that in between that time?
I don't think that was a back to back for me. I could be wrong, but I don't think it was. But I remember the moment at the end of the previous episode where I was like, oh shit, like what are we about to get into in this next episode? Like I could feel that the next episode was going to be hard. Like I just knew it was going to be one of those special episodes in terms of what they decide to go for. And it almost feels like a concept episode because they do everything very differently, but it's also, not in the kind of fun way we expect a concept episode to be, of course. I knew something crazy, kind of special was going to happen with the next episode, even though it's very sad. And it blew me away. I agree. I think it's like objectively the best episode of Buffy, in my opinion. Personally, it's not my personal favorite just because it's so hard to watch. But I think, they just did everything perfect in that episode. when I first watched that episode, I had not yet experienced grief, and I still was a absolute mess. Watching that episode, I cannot imagine. I now, since I watched that episode, I have experienced a very intense grief.
Mm-hmm.
And I genuinely don't know if I can watch that again anytime soon, because they just hit the nail on the head. Like, they covered the way that they use different characters to express like different ways that someone can grieve was so, like, I don't know. It's like you look at them and you understand everyone's reacting very differently, but it's all valid. And it's all like, there's always one where you're like, you can relate to that person, or you can understand that person, even if you can't relate. And it's just so haunting and so good.
That changes again as you get older, and as you have different life experiences. Like, the characters in it represent like a different part of you, like the way you sort of like process that type of moment. And the way it's done is just really brilliant, having the false image of like Joyce waking up, and then having like the image, like
that made me mad.
It's brutal. And like I said, it's that's the first time we see Tara and Willow kiss on screen. And I think that's such a tender moment, because it's like, it does break down barriers for people in terms of like, if you're invested in the episode, you're invested in the show at that point. It's that you're seeing the characters at like such a uniquely low point, not just like low like losing a fight or whatever, but low in terms of like like what this just the loss itself and the consequence of loss like does to them, and the shock around it, because it's so sudden, and it's not supernatural related. It's not like Joyce was killed or anything like that. It's the most frustrating thing, because then you can like, as an audience member, you can like sort of compartmentalize that into like, oh, they can get revenge, or they can like rectify it somehow. This is just like something that really happens that there's no answer for, which is like something that's really, really difficult to sit with. And again, like I really love that moment for Buffy and Tara near the end, when Tara consoles Buffy about like telling her that her mother passed away when she was very young. And I just think it's such a masterclass in like what you can do with such a confined time of just a single episode, and how impactful it is for a series.
Yeah, it's unbelievable what they did with that episode. And I think the fact that they had like Tara and Willow kiss for the first time in that episode, I didn't even realize that was the first time. I mean, at the time, I'm sure I did, but I forgotten that was the first time. And I love that it was. I mean, of course, I wish it could have happened sooner and it didn't have to be some big deal. But I can see why they chose that episode to do that, because it's like, it's such a human episode. Like, everyone is just stripped down to like skin and bone and emotion in this episode, and we are all the same, and we're all grieving. And it's just like, of course Tara's gonna comfort her girl, of course they're gonna share a sweet kiss, of course like love is kind of the big, it's why grief exists. So to like show such like a pure love amidst the grief, it also is kind of like looking at people who had any sort of judgment toward LGBTQ at that time. It's looking them in the face and being like, how can you think any other way in this moment other than see the beauty of this relationship and the comfort that it's bringing them? These are just two humans. Like, so that's a really cool moment for them to choose, actually. And even the follow-up episode, I think it was titled Forever, where there is a moment where Dawn is like, I want to bring her back. But then they decide that would be wrong. I thought was a great follow-up episode as well. And like you said, this not being supernatural means hits so much harder. Like, it's just, it's a rough situation. And I hate it, but I love it because they did it so well. And in Dawn's involvement as well, I think is so impressively done, because again, she's a character that we had just met, even though the implication is that she had been there the whole time. And so you have to sort of like play with that, dynamic of
making the characters feel invested in like her, processing, and then trying to convey that to us as an audience, even though we only known her for like half a season by that point. And I guess getting into Dawn as a character herself, and how that informs that element of the show. I guess do you recall when she showed up and the curveball that was having her there, and then how that developed for you?
Absolutely. I remember the shot where I don't even know what Joyce said or what was happening, but the shot down the hallway where both Buffy and Dawn are standing there and like, they're like, Mom, like they both say something and you're like, who are you? Well, actually my reaction was, oh my God, what are you doing here? Because I know that actress. Like I know her from Gossip Girl and multiple like movies from my childhood. Yeah. And I had no idea she was on this show. So it's funny. It's another moment where I was like, she's only going to be around a couple episodes. And then she was around for the rest of the show. And I was like, how did I not know that you were in this show? I don't know how I missed this show, but it works. So yeah, that was like a really fun moment because I don't know. It's fun when they confuse you, and the way that they, I don't know. I think at that point in the show in season 5, they're allowed to confuse you and you're going to trust them. And so that's really fun. So I was like, okay, this is going to be something fun. And then when it unravels and you figure out what's going on here, I thought it was just like one of the most original things I'd seen in media ever. I was like, oh my God, how did you come up with this? This is so good. I've never seen it before and I'm eating it up. It's so, so good. I loved Dawn in season 5 specifically, in that the key of it all was so cool.
Yeah. And again, I really do love the way that she, impacts and informs Buffy as a character, because just that loss of Joyce would just be so different if Dawn wasn't around, and Buffy's still grappling with like her, emotion towards her, because like they figure out that she wasn't always there. And like, what that means for them, and what it means to like, be sisters and stuff like that. That, the fallout of that, with Dawn around, I think is what, raises Buffy, or lowers her and then raises her at the same time to like the true like superhero status of like having to find a 9-to-5 job to, to support them, while also being the Slayer, while also dying and coming back. And so, she's stretched so thin in the latter half of that season, and then in season 6, which I totally get why that would be like your favorite season, is like just the way they're sort of like, putting her through the ringer that season. Season 5, again, to touch on it, I guess briefly, with Glory, and her as an antagonist. I really love Glory just because like the actress is so great. In terms of an antagonist, like she's not like my favorite, but she's obviously above like, Adam and the trio and stuff.
Yes.
But I do love the stakes that she just immediately represents when you figure out what she is as a hell god. Just it's such a great reveal, and such a great like, okay, like wow, like we're in like the next territory of like, what we're dealing with here.
Yeah. Which you have to do at that point. It gets hard in the later seasons. You're like, what are they gonna introduce as the big bad? Like, we've done it all. What can be higher stakes than this? And then they do it with her. And I remember that moment very vividly, where they were like, she's a god. And I was like, oh no, this is bad. So yeah, I love Glory. She's also one of my favorite big bads. I would say that the mayor is probably my number 1, but Glory might be my number 2.
Yeah.
And and the whole situation with like Ben and unraveling what's going on there, her counterpart.
Yeah.
And it was just, a season 5 is such an original season. It's one of my favorites. Yeah. I would say like 6, 5, 3 are probably up there as top 3.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, largely impacted just by, again, the twists and turns that we have with the characters in that season. And then also finishing that season again with Buffy's second death, a sort of more permanent one for her, in terms of like, what it does to her and the characters. I really loved that. Even though they brought her back, and from that there's like such huge consequences, for what that does to her, and then likewise what that does for her, in relation to everyone else. I guess, do you recall what your feeling was when the season ends with like her death, and thinking like, what's the path forward here?
Yeah, I was just very curious. I'm in a watching this after the fact, I'm in a privileged position where I know there's another couple seasons yet.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's no way there's no more Sarah Michelle Gellar. I was like,
Yeah.
there's no way. So that gave me some comfort, but I was just also still in shock. And I was like, well, they have to bring her back. How are they going to do that? And I was honestly like a little bit nervous because I was like, when you kill off a character, especially in the way that it happened here, where I feel like they could have ended the show there. They could have, but they didn't. So I was like, okay, I hope it feels I hope it makes sense the way that they bring her back. And it's not just like, well, we need to figure out a way. And of course, at that point in the show, I should have known to have trust in the writers, and the way that they brought her back and how impactful that situation stayed for the entirety of season 6. It's not just like they brought her back and it's like, she's back and you move on and you go on with the show. It's like you are constantly seeing her grapple with the effects of what happened there, of sacrificing herself and then being brought back out of what sounds like heaven. That conversation with Spike when she says, I think I was in heaven, is so heartbreaking and so important to know as far as like her trying to find her way again in season 6. And I think another reason why I love season 6 is because that trope of chosen one and the isolation that comes with that is something that she was battling for 5 seasons now. And it's like, we're making a little progress. And then that happens and she is just more isolated than ever. And I really loved seeing her kind of hit rock bottom and have to crawl her way out and being like so much better for it by the end of it. Like, it's such a great season as far as character work, in my opinion, which I think is why it's my favorite, not just with Buffy, but everyone in season 6 is like, has their own personal demons that they're trying to tackle.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then not be remiss if we don't mention, Anya obviously playing, like a huge role by this point in the series. It was, again, also one of my favorite characters just because Emma Caulfield is so remarkable in that role.
She's great.
Again, people, watching it at a later point in time, seeing representation with them for, someone who may potentially, is a parable for like being on the spectrum, that people see like the way she is like, sort of like very curt with like her thoughts and like she can't like process like a lot of the emotions the same way they can because she's just not human the way they are. Which like, again, it's a great way to sort of like, deconstruct like what that means as a metaphor. But she becomes such a big part of the gang all the way to the end of the series, and we're also dealing with like her relationship with Xander, and that culminates into the wedding. And I it's when I look back at the series, I get very frustrated that they don't end up together, but I do respect the choice of sticking to that and then having them reconcile again very slowly over the rest of the series. I guess what were your thoughts on Anya as a character coming back in? You're like this wasn't just a one-off monster, that she's back and she's now like sticking around a little bit, and then what that meant for her as a character moving forward or with the rest of the gang.
Yeah, I always loved Anya's character because, again, maybe it's the charisma of the actress and just the way that she's able to hit these beats. Because I feel like her character, it's very easy. You could present her in a way that is not fun to watch. Like, because sometimes she says things and you're like, oh my God, like I can't believe you're even thinking that. But I think that the actress just pulled it off so well and like got to the heart of her character very early on. And I just understood her very early on and related to her in a lot of ways. Cause I'm like, you probably shouldn't say that out loud, but I can't lie. I had that same thought. Like I would think the same way. And so that's just cool to see such an honest character in the midst of everything, just saying it how it is. I really appreciated that about her. And her and Xander's relationship, I was surprised that they didn't end up together for sure. I think it would have worked just the same if they did, because I do appreciate the end of Anya's character very much. And I don't think it would have taken away or given anything if she was in a relationship still at that point with Xander. So yeah, I actually don't know if I have like really solid thoughts on her relationship with Xander. It's just like, I can acknowledge it was very toxic at points. And I was like, we need to take a break. But yeah, the wedding, Hell's Bells, that episode, I was surprised with where that went and how that panned out from there. I think it works and it's fine. It does. Yeah, it's a complicated one. It makes me not like Xander as much because I'm like, how did you get her all the way into that wedding dress? And that's when you're like, I don't know. Like, that's just awful. But Xander, yeah, we could talk about Xander for hours.
We really could.
And but Anya's great. I really enjoy her character from start to finish.
Yeah. You're very right. There's definitely some toxicity in the relationship. I think that peeks through. I think a lot of that coming from Xander and the type of character he is at some points in the show and his choices. Yes. And season 6 again, we're now dealing with the trio. And it's one of those things where it's really hard looking back on it and like again trying to parse their involvement with like the show's like development and like how great, how many great things happened in that season. I guess since that's your favorite season, as you said yourself, how would you break down sort of like your entertainment of that season? Like what elements do you feel you really, really enjoy and what elements do you feel like, combat that again with the trio? Because it's hard to think about when you're watching it, at what point do you just sort of settle in that, okay, they're here, I guess they're here, they're the big bad of the season, we're not really getting anything else.
Yeah, I think when I was watching, when it came to the trio, I was like, okay, they're like fleas. Like I just want to flick them off. Like they're just annoying. They're not scary or intimidating. But in hindsight, I actually really love what they did with the trio in this season, because obviously it leads to Warren and the gun violence and Tara's death and Buffy getting shot and that whole moment. And I think it's so smart, actually, and very realistically terrifying. The way that these boys started out as just like boys in a basement, like goofing around and being incels, because that's a real life thing that happens. Those are real life people. And that gun violence often is because it's like an idiot white male, if we're being statistical. And that's what's scary to me. Like, I'm not scared of monsters. I wasn't scared of monsters under my bed as a kid. Like, I've always been scared of, this is because I watched horror movies way too young. I watched Scream when I was like 5 years old, and my mom is still annoyed with my dad for that. But I've always been like just scared of men. Like they're my biggest fear. And it sucks a lot of the time, but like men terrify me as a woman a lot of the time. And so like season 6, when you see like these guys just getting together and acting the way that they do, and then it just turning into like oh, well, I'm just going to get a gun and I'm going to shoot. And like, that's so real, unfortunately. And so in a way, like they're not my favorite big bad. I have more fun with the mayor and with Glory, but I think they are the scariest, and they absolutely mesh well into what I think is the darkest season of the show. And it's like looking at personal demons, and those some people they are walking demons, those 3 in that season. And I just like, I really enjoy them as far as how they fit into the season and what it all comes down to in the end. Because it's like, you look back and you're like, wait, you're just this stupid boy in your mom's basement. Like, that's how you started. And now look at the real destruction that you caused here. You took someone's life. It's crazy. I really, in the beginning, like I said, I was confused by these boys being here and being like, really? They're the big bad? But by the end of it, I'm like, oh, they are the big bad of the real world as well. So yeah, and I just love the season as well, outside of the trio, just because of what Buffy's dealing with, what her friends are dealing with. Willow, of course, her arc in that season, and that's Spike and Buffy finally go for it in that season, and it's not what you expect it to be. Like it's so much more complicated than I expected it to be, and I love that about it. I love that it's not the right choice for Buffy, actually. And it's just, there's so much going on in that season. It's so good.
There is. No, that's very well put. Yeah, very well put about what the trio sort of represents. And Buffy, again, grappling with her reservations coming back and how that informs her, like a relationship with Spike at that point. It being sort of a release for her and an escape because of what she's trying to deal with and what she can't convey to the others. I love that. It comes out in one of the most iconic episodes, Once More with Feeling.
Yes.
And which I really loved your reaction to that, because you were just like freaking out over this song, especially Giles singing in the episode as well.
Oh my God, it was just perfection.
Do you have like a affinity for musicals away from this, or is it something that you
I wouldn't say I'm a musical girly. Like, of course, I've seen Wicked a couple times, and I love Wicked. I've seen a musical here and there, but like I don't have musical knowledge. But what I did have growing up was Glee. So we don't want to be here comparing Buffy and Glee. That would be a crime. But I am very much, I have fun with a musical episode. I had fun with the whole musical show. It was like my whole personality when I was younger. And I've seen musical episodes done since then on random TV shows. So I'm like aware of the fact that a musical episode is a thing. And then learning that this was kind of like the musical episode to set off all musical episodes going forward in TV. Of course it is. No one will ever top it. It's so good. The music is so good. The like natural voices singing that music is so good. The plot is tea. Like it's so good.
Like you said before, it's one of those things where like you could just do that as like sort of a bottle episode, and like everything goes back to status quo by the end of it. But no, we get a lot of development for everyone in the episode, especially again for Buffy, being able to admit to everyone, what she's dealing with by that point. And it's such a brilliant episode. It's something I always, I'm excited to see people's reactions to once we get to it. The finale of that season again is the Tara's death, and them unfortunately putting Amber Benson in the credits just for that one episode. It's such a gut punch. But then we get that in Dark Willow in the final episodes of the season. Again, getting into that, it does again feel almost like everything is sort of wrapped up in sort of a neat bow, because then the trio takes off and like Warren is killed by that point. And then now it's just dealing with Willow, and it's a very personal, dilemma that they have to deal with of like, trying to bring her down. I guess once we get through that arc of her and they're able to sort of like, solve it. Did you have an idea of like, what you wanted to see at least in the show? Because like we don't really know what's coming up next, but like what you ideally have wanted to see for that final season?
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Like, again, honestly, the finale of season 6, it could have ended there and I would have accepted that and been happy. The season 6 finale is my favorite episode of the entire show. I think season 6 is the best written season, and Buffy like crawling out of the grave in the first, or I guess technically it would probably be the second episode, of that season, and then crawling out of like the hole with Dawn with like a new hope in the finale is like my favorite moment. So I would have been happy with that being the last episode, but I really didn't go into season 7 with any expectations, more so just curiosity and more trust than ever in the show that it's like they're gonna do something good again. And season 7 is like it's probably mid-range as far as where my rankings of seasons come out to, but definitely all worth it when you do finally get to that last episode of the entire show.
Yeah. Season 7 is one that I think, again, when I speak to people in person about it, it's the one they have like the most frustration with, again, because there's a lot of back and forth with the characters in terms of certainty and, trust with one another. It tests them a lot in terms of like what they're dealing with for as a team.
Yeah.
But I really love the stakes of it. One of my favorite episode of the whole series is Conversations with Dead People.
Cool.
Where they're talking to the vampire, and Willow's talking to the girl that had died at school, and that's just a well done like horror episode, because Buffy is like generally scary because like it's monsters and stuff like that, but that is such a well directed episode for like the horror element of it, and it's like a great one to watch on like on a Halloween night or like by yourself alone at home or something like that. And it teases up for the first evil being the big bad of the final season. And like you said, it's such a great way to be like, how can they raise the bar? Like what's the next thing? And the first evil as a concept being the final big bad is such a great way to end the series, in my opinion. And the way it's like not a physical threat, it's like a mental threat for them, and like how it plays with them throughout the final season. Getting into the last half of that series, the first half is a lot of buildup of what's coming and what we got to do, and then they introduce just the concept of like the idea that there's other slayers to deal with now. What were your thoughts getting into say the latter half of that series, where they're starting to be tested? They have a handful of the slayers for their army now, and things are starting to get escalated towards the last part of the series.
Yeah. Some of my least favorite things happen and some of my favorite things happen. I really love the concept of the first, and the concept of like bringing all of these potentials together. I think bringing the potentials to Sunnydale makes Buffy more of a slayer than she's ever been. Like when you see Buffy standing next to these girls, it's like, oh my God, it just is a reminder of how far she's come and where she was at in that first episode of the show. And just really cool to see her shine as the Slayer more than ever. I loved that. The potentials actually having to like be people with like their own dialogues and little plot lines, I have to say wasn't my favorite. I think because like I care about the Scooby Gang. That's who they've made us care about this whole time. So then bringing so many extra people into it in concept, in theory, is like really fun and I love it. But then when they're just like there and we have to like write them into all these scenes, and it's like, I don't know, like in practice, sometimes I was like, I don't care about you guys this much. But then the show calls you out on that. And it's like, Buffy, we're focused on Buffy. We're focused on the mission. And Buffy gets called out like, do you even know all these girls' names? And then I'm sitting there on the other side of the screen being like, I don't know these girls' names and I don't care either. And that's not good. Like, it's so interesting how sometimes the show teaches you a lesson and they know that they're doing it.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, let me have more, empathy for these potentials, because they're in a crazy spot, like the very scary spot. So the potentials. My least favorite thing was there was this whole thing with Giles where we thought for a minute that he was dead and that he was maybe now the first, because no one was touching him when he arrived. And, that cutoff scene where he almost like looks like he's about to get his head chopped off. That was my least favorite writing in the whole show, because I'm just like, there's no reason to do it that way other than to mess with the audience. And I don't like that. Like, I want it to serve a purpose and have a reason within its own universe rather than mine. So that wasn't my favorite. But yeah, the potentials all coming together. Buffy learns so much about herself. Like I said, in the first half of that season, she just is shining through as a slayer. But in the second half, she actually learned so much about herself. And I wish some of the others would learn more about her and have a little bit more appreciation, a lot more appreciation. But it's, I think, overall a great season. And even the things that I don't love, they are necessary for the payoff.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you get into the potentials being such a pivotal part of the story at that point. And you have to write them, I guess, as like, new. And so they don't understand, what they're getting into. But it's frustrating to see like a strong stint of like 6 episodes of them disrespecting Buffy and kicking her out of her own house. And so it gets very frustrating at that point.
Yeah.
I think that's what people would like, don't look as fondly back on when you get to that part of the series.
Yeah.
But like you said, though, I really do love Buffy stepping up and Faith stepping up as well as like, the experienced Slayers, and them also reflecting on the idea that, like we were these girls' age when we started, and we were able to do it. And I think that's such a really cool dynamic of like having these girls and then being able to look back on, I guess, like you said, how far they've come, that they were kids when they started, they were teenagers, like 16 years old, and like now they're adults with like experience and like accomplishments under the belts to like lean on. And it's a really great moment when Buffy takes them to the construction site to fight the Turrican vampire and like show them like it's not impossible. And she has a great handful of those moments throughout that final season of like her being able to like be an example for them. And getting into the end of the series, they're starting to set the pieces for the final fight between her and the first evil, and Spike being such an important part of that. Spike, lowest point was at the end of season 6 when he attacks Buffy.
Yes.
And then that is like what a lot of people would almost define as like character assassination. So he has a huge hill to climb in that final season, and so him getting his soul back is like a good way to sort of kick that off. But as far as what were your thoughts on Spike in that final season and his involvement with the show? What sort of how he was sort of like trying to redeem himself?
Yeah, with what he did in Seeing Red, I don't view it as character assassination for a couple of reasons. I think that moment was inevitable. I think the point of that moment is to show us that, yes, he is better than most vampires, but vampires are evil. They just are soulless. And even though he's trying to combat that, even though he has like the strength in him, because his, who he was is still so strong and who he is now, even without a soul. I think he's still a very special soulless vampire. And, when you compare who Angelus is as, that soulless vampire to Spike, the soulless vampire, it's like, Angelus is, oh my, like way, way more of an issue. But I think it was important to have a moment like that. I think it sucks what they chose to be the moment, to make us realize that he's still going to be a monster at the end of the day. He can't run away from that. Right. I hate that is what they had to do. But I understand what they were trying to prove. And I think it makes sense for his character. It doesn't take away from the good things that he did as a soulless vampire. Those are still impressive to me and they stand out to me. And it's like, wow, you are something a little bit different and there's something special here. But, can't hide that at the end of the day, you can only run from the monster that you are so much before there's going to be a burst and you can't help it. But yeah, I do think that I couldn't have gone on with Spike if he remained soulless, because of that moment. Like, it's like, okay, this proves to me that's just who you are. And it's not something that you can, challenge. It's just always going to be part of you, that monster in you. And I was like, I don't know how they're going to keep him around after this. Like, I don't want him around after this. Buffy I'm sure isn't going to want him around after this. So them going the route of him getting a soul, I thought was just necessary to keep him in the show. Like, either he's out of the show now because of what he did, or he has a soul now. And to me, I know some people aren't willing to do this, but to me, that is a clean slate. Like that is a new person. Like when I look at who Angelus is versus Angel, it's so clear that those are two different beings.
Yeah.
And so that's how I treated Spike. And I was like, okay, like this is a clean slate. Let's see what you can do here. And again, what I love, which I talked about when it comes to Cordelia and when it comes to Faith, is like his personality is still very much intact. He still can be an asshole, even though he has a soul. But he would never hurt anyone. And I really believe that. And yeah, like, I guess in the end, him sacrificing himself for Sunnydale, I felt was earned. And I was like really happy to see his character, quote, end that way.
Right.
Yeah. I am like halfway through season 5 of Angel right now. So I've got a little bit to go, but yeah.
No, they give him a lot to overcome in that final season. Not just because he has a soul now, but because they have his mind being twisted by the first, and then they have his dynamic with Robin as well to have to grapple with. And like I think that's a pivotal moment for him to reconcile, who he was with who he wants to be now, and as like someone coming back, like a sin from his past coming back so strongly like that. And that final episode, the finale of the whole series, again, like it's such a mind-blowing choice, and I love that end right there with his sacrifice, but also breaking the Slayer rule. So now it's like spread out to everyone.
Yes.
And every girl who was a potential now having the power to be a full Slayer. It's such a sort of world upending choice for the show, and like it's sort of brilliant to just end there, so you don't have to deal with like what that means.
Right, you can't. There's no show after that.
But like the episode or two before that is Buffy. They ask her, and this stuck with me as watching you through your reactions. Which they ask her, like, well, once it's over, like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to be? And she doesn't really have an answer for it. And then that's what they ask her in the final moment of the series is like, what do we do now? And it just ends before she answers. I think that's such an important moment for, again, someone who grew up watching the show. If you were around their ages, when that was on, becoming an adult, and the idea of like, okay, who do you want to be now as a person? Just leaving that open-ended and just trying to like not having to feel forced to have a definitive answer because it's not being thrust upon you. I think it's such an important choice to end that series on. I guess, what were your thoughts on like just like those final moments of the show?
I love your take on that. That's so cool, and I absolutely agree. It was just a perfect ending. Like that final shot of her smiling without an answer makes me so emotional. And I think it's just because I love Buffy so much. Like we all do at that point. How can you not be emotional when she's like finally not alone anymore? That's like the big thing that she's been fighting this whole time, is just feeling like everything is on her shoulders. No one will understand. She feels so isolated, and it's the perfect ending. I love it so much what they did there. And it like also connects back into Willow with her magic, and being worried about like getting back into it after what she went through in season 6. And she was able to like channel this light magic instead of having to turn to the dark magic in order to be powerful, which is really cool to see. And everything about that last episode, those last couple episodes were perfect in my opinion. And I love that last shot so much.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful way to end the series. And it makes me curious about, what the sequel series, will
I know I'm worried, but I'm excited. Like I'm hesitantly excited,
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough thing to, I think, grapple with, just like mentally, of like what they could do with it, what they should do with it. I know the actress who's playing the new Slayer was in Star Wars Skeleton Crew, and she was really great in that. So I think she's a great pick for that choice.
Okay.
And but looking forward to that series now into the future. Do you have any hopes or expectations or ideas of what you might want to see, or maybe conversely might hopefully not want to see?
Gosh, I guess my worries come from like seeing Buffy again. Like if they did a whole spin-off that was like completely new characters, I probably wouldn't be as excited because it's like the reason I love Buffy is because I love the characters in the show. So
Right.
it's like a thing of I want to see the characters again if they're going to do a spin-off, but also I'm worried with them having the characters. I don't know. Their stories just came to a great, perfect ending. And I just don't want to see them have to stress anymore. Like in my world, in my head, they're just like chilling on a beach.
Yeah.
And they're not having to worry about anything. Well, that's not true. Buffy's out there like helping all of the different slayers around the world, probably.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, it just is like I don't want any characters to be ruined because I just love what they went through and how they ended already. And what I'm excited for, I mean, I'm curious about how they're going to handle the whole like multiple slayers thing. Like what story are we going to choose to focus on then?
Yeah.
Because I don't know anything about the reboot or what's been said, but I don't think they're going to have Buffy be like the main character. I think she's going to be in it, but not the main character.
Yeah.
Because you would think maybe if Buffy's the main character and it's about her going around and like helping slayers around the world, like I could see that making sense. But it's like, how do you choose one story to tell? I don't know. I think it's just the unknown of it all that has me intrigued but nervous, you know?
I agree. I totally agree. It's hard to, like think of like, what they could do to honor the original series but then also continue it in their own right. The one thing I'm really, really apprehensive about is if they just reverse the Slayer thing, if it goes back to one Slayer, just because that was such a pivotal moment and it's like such a, important idea of like, smashing the patriarchy, like in such a literal sense, that I would feel very bad about if they just went back to like, just like reestablishing it. For the sake of like having this kick off the same way. So I'm excited again, like you said, I'm excited just because it's Buffy and it'll be interesting to be in that world again. But I'm apprehensive about like what they could do with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Cassie, thank you so much for joining me today. It was again such a thrill to revisit the series through your eyes and then just talking to you today about it. Again, it's truly an honor. You're one of my favorite reactors I think I found in the space over the last few years. Just because again, you really dive into the characters. So it was such a joy to talk to you today.
Yeah, I'm so happy I did this. You're like so easy to talk to, and I know I can tell that you also are just as much of a fan as I am. So just, of course, the conversation is going to be fun, and I wish it didn't have to end. But we can't just release like an 8-hour thing.
Yeah, we could easily definitely go that long, but there's we have lives to get back to. But everyone can go watch your ranking of the every episode of Buffy. On your new channel. Cass
Reacts, the series.
The series, that's always, yes.
All TV stuff is going to go on there. On my main channel, Cass Reacts, I'm doing 2 movies a week, starting, I think, last week, where every Tuesday is just a regular whatever movie I want it to be, and then every Friday is specifically horror. So that's my plans there. And then all of my TV stuff is on Cass Reacts, the series. And that one, the first video that I posted was the episode ranking, which was so hard, but fun.
Yeah, I can imagine every episode. Wow, the undertaking. Where can we find you on social media, YouTube, alongside Cass Reacts series?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Twitch and TikTok, all at Cassie Karma Disco. Karma is the name of my dog. And disco, I don't know. I have a disco ball tattoo, I guess. So Cassie Karma Disco. And I stream on Twitch like multiple times a week. I'm not very active on Instagram, but that's where I put my stream schedules. And I'm trying to be a TikTok girly and post stuff over there. So please follow me over there if you're on TikTok as well.
Yeah, it's a lot. I know the juggle. Trying to keep up with everything. You can find me at Necrotic across social media. You can find us at the Reactorverse across social media as well. You want to link to our Patreon Discord down below. And we'll catch everyone on the next episode.